Que tal, mi gente? So the last video, I talked about being at Henry Ford Hospital, Henry Ford Jackson Hospital, and just how great the staff was there. Everybody there was just, I feel like everybody kind of went above and beyond what I feel like a normal staff member typically does. I don't know if it was because of my situation. I don't know if it was because of me personally and how I interact with people, but I will say that I feel like they had a personable and empathetic level that I haven't really seen before in any other kind of setting. Um, so I really appreciated them. But once I got to the rehabilitation center at Chelsea, there, the IHA and UofM mixed hospital, not going to say that I didn't have as personable as a relationship there with the staff as I did at Henry Ford. I just feel like because of the regular rotation that they had at Henry Ford, like night shift and day shift, didn't really vary too much. When I got to the hospital in Chelsea there, I think I was the fifth person to be in that wing. It was a refurbished, brand new wing of the hospital, like accidents like myself that involve spinal injuries and issues like that. So I was the fifth person. I was the first person in that room, fifth person on the wing. So I feel like they were trying to get the hang of things there. So the staff rotation was actually a lot more spread out. It wasn't the same people every day like it was at Henry Ford Jackson. It was kind of a more of a spread out rotation. So I saw some of the same people, but it wasn't like every day, every night kind of a situation. It was like every few days. So I did develop those relationships. Especially kind of with some of the nurses who took care of me regularly. Again, like I've spoke about in previous videos, when I first got to the rehabilitation center, I had just come off of having a Foley catheter in, which they leave in full time and just drains when my bladder fills. So when I got to the Chelsea rehabilitation center, the nurses were cathing for me to begin with. So there was a little bit of communication and stuff going on there, and it's one of those situations. They're cathing for me, and I didn't really want to watch them. It's the same as like needles don't necessarily bother me if I'm not paying attention. But if I'm watching you put a needle in me, it starts to, I don't know, make me queasy. So, and then it's one of those things like, am I supposed to make eye contact while somebody's putting a catheter in me? So it just becomes one of those situations where it gets kind of awkward, but I kind of thrive in those situations. I try to, kind of de escalate the situation or make it a little bit more. I try to make things funny. Like if we're going to be in an uncomfortable situation, let's laugh about it, right? So always trying to crack jokes, be silly, whatever, right? So, but I did develop a fairly decent relationship with both Kelly and Danny. Kelly was my physical therapist, and Danny, she was my occupational therapist, and both of them, again, just tremendous. Just personability and empathy towards me and my situation, and you could just see they have passion um, and pride with what they do. I think a lot of people nowadays lack pride in what they do. So to have somebody who's prideful in what they're doing and really likes what they do, it makes it easier overall to be in a situation. Even on my most frustrating days, they're smiling and trying to encourage me and want me to get better. Um, the funny thing about being at the rehabilitation center is, I was at the hospital for 2 weeks, so being at the rehab facility for 2.5 weeks, I actually did not want to leave. Um, my goal before I left there was to be able to walk again. And I was still not able to walk without the aid of anything when I first left the rehabilitation center. And the cool thing is I had 3 hours a day total um, of OT and PT, physical therapy and occupational therapy. So usually hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. So and that kind of wherever they fit you in, they kind of give you the schedule the day before of like how your next day is going to roll out. So usually it would be like an hour of one and a half an hour of the other first thing, or sometime in the morning. So hour of one, half an hour of the other. Then I would have lunch, and then in the afternoon it would be the opposite. So whatever one I had the half an hour of, I would have an hour of in the afternoon, and then whichever one I had the half an hour of, or yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, half an hour, hour, half an hour. So 3 hours total throughout the day, and they were kicking my butt in there, but I really appreciate how they were kicking my butt in there. They were really pushing me, and they saw me pushing myself too. It's crazy to think that in some of these situations, people just accept, okay, this is how I am now. I'm not that kind of person. I don't accept things for what they are. I want to push the boundary, push the limits. I want to find my boundaries, find my limits, and I don't want to be comfortable in whatever situation I'm in. As soon as you get comfortable, you start to get relaxed, and you're okay with the way things are, and you don't want to move anymore, and this, that, and the other. And it's crazy to see how people kind of accept that fate. I'm not that kind of person. So I was really ambitious and I really pushed myself. And because I was pushing myself, they saw that. So it really gave them the energy to push me as well too. So I think with both of us kind of pushing each other, or pushing me, I should say, it makes it easier to want to succeed. Um, some of the video that you've seen before, you could see me struggling in those videos trying to walk when I was doing physical therapy, the occupational therapy. There was days I couldn't even stand because I was pushing myself so hard, my legs would turn to jello, and I would essentially wouldn't be able to do anything in the afternoon. The cool thing is when you're in a rehab facility like that and they're teaching you how to walk again, they have a lot of cool little toys. They got the handrails and other kinds of stuff to use in there, but they had this big ass machine. Um, I called it the adult walker. I'm sure there's a technical term for it, and I'm sure that they use a common term as well too. But if you picture like what an infant looks like in a walker and how they kind of put them in, and it supports their weight, in the seat of it. This is essentially the same kind of thing. So it was a harness that kind of hooked in my crotch, and then a safety around, like harness around my chest and my stomach, and I was kind of suspended in this, and then they could adjust it to whatever height they wanted it to. And she Kelly would actually be behind me, and it would be motorized. So I had these hand rails that were next to me as well too, so that when I walked, I could have something to support my weight. But she would also be behind it driving it, so that I would have to either set the pace and then she would just creep along with me, or she would set the pace and then I would have to keep up with her. Um, I always enjoyed using that machine because as I progressed, I would walk further and further. Um, but the crazy thing is I could not walk without having my hands on those rails while I walked. As soon as I would let go, I would literally fall and like dangle in the harness because my legs could not support my body weight yet. So I ended up getting close with the staff at Chelsea Rehabilitation Center as well too. They did a tremendous job there as well. They really stayed on top of keeping me informed. They actually had several programs there that I really appreciated, to where they really try to build you back up mentally in a place like that. And that was one thing I really appreciated about being there, because it wasn't just about the physical therapy. It wasn't just about the occupational therapy. They knew how much I like dogs, so they would have volunteers come in with their dogs and stuff. So once or twice a week, I would get a visit from somebody and a dog, which was always beneficial because those dogs are usually really well trained, and they come in and they really respond well to the patients, especially somebody like myself who loves dogs like that. So I had a few visits from people with their dogs. They also have volunteers that come in that play music. So I would have people come in and play music for me, whether it was on the violin or a guitar, or a cappella. It was just cool to have that kind of volunteering going on at a place like this. They also had like game night, they had like euchre night and stuff like that. So again, it was cool to be in a place where it wasn't just about physical, it was also about mental, and rebuilding people back up. And again, seeing how some people accepted this, how some people were bitter, and me trying to maintain my mental, roller coaster that I was going through all of this, my ups and downs, the emotionality that I had, the empathy from some of the staff towards me to be able to help get me through a situation like this. So all in all, to go from someplace like Henry Ford Jackson to a place like Chelsea Rehabilitation Center, and have all those people involved in the steps along the way, and every single one of them being a pretty decent, well respected, prideful, empathetic, just overall general nice person. To be able to have that every step along the way and not question, am I doing the right thing? Am I pushing myself too hard? Am I not pushing myself hard enough? Everything seemed to be just right and fit perfectly along the process of the way. So When it came time for me to leave, I didn't want to leave. I had been there for 2.5 weeks, and they told me that I was actually there for a little bit longer than what they generally like. 2 weeks is usually pushing it. So I was like, well, I feel like if I leave here, I'm not going to have the same kind of pressures on me. Not necessarily pressure like it was a bad thing. I wouldn't be necessarily taking the same steps at the full pace I was at the rehabilitation center. Because once I got out, it was okay. I had to get into the routine of going to physical therapy, which is, instead of it being every day with occupational therapy, it's now once or twice a week. So then it puts a lot of on me at home to make sure that I'm doing all the exercises and stretches that I need to do on my own time, which generally got to the point to where I was able to start doing those things. I was able to get back into the gym. I'm able to use some of the equipment and machines up there for my legs and rebuilding some of my strength. And then doing some of the stretches and exercises around here that I don't necessarily need to go to the gym for. My morning wake up stretch and all of that are all things that I've kind of incorporated into my daily routine since I've left the rehabilitation center in order to kind of keep a good regimen going. So just want to, in this one, I know the last one I thanked everybody at Henry Ford. So in this one, I really would like to thank all of the staff, Kelly and Danny, physical therapist and occupational therapist at Chelsea Rehabilitation Center. They both really pushed me to want to do better and to keep pushing me to the limit that I know that mentally I could, the pace I wanted to keep and keep working towards that goal. So both of them really helped push me along, and just the overall the nursing staff and the doctors and everybody really worked around the clock just to keep everybody kind of in a comfortable space, whether it was, like I said, whether it was mentally, physically, or a combination of all of them. I'm really appreciative of everybody that helped me all along the way.